Did you know you are surrounded by a historical, powerful cloud of witnesses who have seen and persevered through a whole lot of evil, and they are cheering you on this morning. So be encouraged. Lay aside the weight of this time and run to your end with perseverance. Both my grandmothers told me stories as a child of World War II in Europe. One, who went through the Blitz in London with my mother as a baby, spoke of endless bombings, rationing, and disruption that affected her to the day she died. And she was a complicated woman, full of courage, but also anger and hurt, as well as perseverance, tenacious love, and a really hot temper. My other grandmother was a Jewish woman born in Syria. She ended up marrying an English chaplain to the US Army in North Africa, which is a very long story. And they ended up fleeing the Nazi invasion of North Africa with my father as an infant, finally making it to London, where they lived before returning to Morocco after the war. My mother-in-law, who had a Jewish father, was born in Paris in 1940, which was, let's say, challenging. And she ended up on a train to the concentration camps before a contact in the Red Cross managed to rescue her and her parents, and they too escaped to England. I wonder what stories of courage, pain, brokenness, sin, hurt, and victory you all have in your family histories. People who went through stuff, who weren't perfect, and who show us that there are ways to move through even the hardest of times. You are surrounded by a historical, powerful cloud of witnesses who have seen, persevered through much evil. And they are cheering you on right now. So be encouraged. Lay aside the weight of our time and run to your end with perseverance. In the jail that I work in, as I connect with some of our Native American and Buddhist and other siblings, I hear in them a deep connection and reverence for ancestors, an active remembering and their liturgy around that, a drawing of strength and fortitude from them and their stories that sustain and nourish in present turmoil. A cloud of witnesses that surrounds us and whispers stories of evil faced, urging courage now. A cloud of witness that enables us to lay aside the weight and the sin and the fear that clings so closely, threatening to stop us in our tracks. A witness that tells us it's actually more normal in this world to face evil than to live a peaceful life. And I know that's not what you want to hear. But my friends, I believe a poverty of our dominant Western culture is that we are not so connected to the stories and witness of our ancestors. And the writer of Hebrews is giving us a gift this morning by reminding us of the ragtag crew that we all here inherit as followers of God. And I believe he's urging us to dig into those stories of our own families, our own ancestors, for stories of courage, mixed with human failing, that can inspire us today in America 2025 to run, run, run. Not run away, but run towards the finish line. So let's meet and greet some of our shared ancestors in our faith. Let's meet Rahab. She was part of the tribe that were enemies of God's people. And she was a prostitute on top of that. But she'd heard of the God of Israel and found herself drawn in some strange way to that faith. So much so that when 2 Israelite spies snuck into her city, she decided to help them, hiding them from her own king's ICE squad in her house, aiding their escape. And when the Israelites finally invaded her city, she and her family were spared, and she became part of that community. And she even became a biological ancestor of Jesus himself. Do you relate to her in any way? Are you someone who maybe makes questionable choices and has some challenges in your personal life? But you'll also find somewhere in you that little mustard seed of faith that draws you to God and God's people and invites you sometimes to take risks. Let's meet Gideon. Now, I love the story of Gideon in Judges 6 and 7. He lived at a time where people were being terrorized, abused, and they were miserable, and they saw no way out of it. And then one day an angel, seemingly disguised as a traveler, sits down and says to this scrawny young lad, Gideon, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And Gideon replies, full of faith, "Well, pardon me, but if the Lord is with us, why is all this bad stuff happening?" Awesome reply. Honest, and it's what a lot of us think but don't often say. And then this traveler angel goes on to let him know that actually he is the one being called to lead his people out of oppression. And Gideon basically replies, "You are out of your mind. I'm nothing, I'm weak. Give me a sign that you're legit." And then the angel proceeds to perform 2 quite big, pretty cool miracles, by which time Gideon finally believes. But then 2 days before the battle, his faith falters, and he asks for another sign, which God gives him. And then the next day, his faith falters again. And he says, "Please don't be mad, God, but I need another sign." And it goes on, but suffice to say, after a lot of back and forth, Gideon goes out and the battle is won. Do you relate at all to that? Called in our time by God, but you really struggle to believe that God's real and God's active and God's going to win in the end. And please, God, just one more sign that you're really in it with us. Let's meet Barak. Maybe a less well-known figure, Judges 4 and 5. Barak is a leader and warrior in Israel who is charged by the female prophet Deborah to take his army and meet the enemy. His response? "If you go with me, Deborah, I will go. But if you're not going, I'm not going." At which point Deborah rolls her eyes and says, "Well, okay, I'll come with you, but see, the Lord will deliver the enemy into the hands of a woman." And so it goes. A particularly gory story of a woman who kills the enemy with a tent peg through the head, but Barak does redeem himself in battle. Do you relate to Barak? A person of courage and fear, needing support from other people. humbled, yet moving forward, albeit as second or actually third fiddle, but part of the important step forward for God's people. Then we have Samson, a man of great physical strength whose lust for a woman was his downfall. And when he found himself at rock bottom and destined for death, his last act was to use his God-given strength to bring down the enemy. Even in doing so, though, he himself was destroyed. But he's someone who rediscovered his courage and love for God at the very last moment, and it made a difference. Then there's Jephthah. Jephthah is the son of a prostitute who slept with his father. His brothers, who were the sons of their father's wife, despised Jephthah and drove him away, only to later beg him to come back and help them defeat a vicious enemy, because Jephthah was a mighty warrior. Anyone here this morning have family issues? Anyone here have people who treat you badly until they need something from you? Anyone here ever feel used? Jephthah fought hard and was full of the Spirit of God, but actually in the end he made this really rash vow one day, which resulted in a family tragedy. And if you're bored this afternoon, read about it in Judges 11. But maybe the motto of Jephthah is, family is complicated, but God works through us in the midst of that. And there's David, King David, a man after God's own heart, a gifted worship leader, one of the greatest kings Israel ever had. He defeated Goliath the giant with his shepherd's sling, but he also slept with the wife of his friend, then had his friend killed so he would never find out. And then he had family drama ever after with his children that broke his heart. Are you someone who's committed to God like David, but also has made big mistakes? Do you have pain over your children? Do you sometimes wonder, can God still use me, or have I really messed things up this time? And the stories go on and on and on and on, because you are surrounded by a historical, powerful cloud of witnesses who've seen and persevered through terrible evil. And they are cheering you on this morning. So be encouraged and lay aside your weight and run to the end with perseverance. Something I love about all these people that we meet is that they are mixed human beings. Sometimes I think our tradition of venerating the saints, look at all these beautiful stained glass windows, it can have the unwanted side effect of implying these people were pretty much perfect, or at least better than me, and so they become others, and we think, I can never be like that. But no, because our rogues gallery of witnesses today are fully human, broken, outrageous, and yet lived with just a little bit, just enough courage in times of intimidation, fear, and terror. And they are witnessing today to the truth that in the midst of chaos, God's purpose is still being worked out. Here's something I found helpful to remind me to tune into the cloud of witnesses, more than the cloud of the noise around us. I found that finding a physical symbol that reminds me of my cloud of witnesses helps me stay focused, and here are two of mine. One of them is these bracelets I wear, these 2 gold bracelets. They were made by that Jewish Syrian grandmother of mine in North Africa, and she gave them to me before she died. And in wearing them, I carry her witness and her with me as I walk around this crazy world. The other is this extra candlestick we have on the altar, the bushy one. Right? This is my burning bush. Because in my first week of seminary, and by the way, seminary took me 9 years to complete, so it was a long journey. But in my first week, I thought, I am just crazy. Why am I doing this? And 3 times that first week, the story of Moses and the burning bush dropped into my lap. And so it got my attention. And God was saying to me, you're on holy ground, though you might not know it yet. So pay attention where you see me burn, and your call will evolve over time. So I went out and found a burning bush, and I took it home and I light it when I need that reminder to stay focused and that we're all standing on holy, sacred ground. Maybe you can find something to carry around with you, to remind you of the people and the stories that are going to bring you encouragement in your days. Because these days, the cloud is seen as somewhere we store all that digital stuff so we can access it when we need to do all those really important things on our phones all day. But I'm inviting you to reclaim the cloud of witnesses. Those witnesses from Scripture who are your inheritance, and those witnesses from your own family lines. Witnesses who were nowhere near perfect, but do have a message of hope and faith. Witnesses who overcame in times, frankly, that were far worse than what we're experiencing right now. Witnesses who say, you can do this, and who cheer you on to your own finish line. At which point, of course, we will all join the cloud to cheer on those who come after us. Because you are surrounded by a historical, faithful, powerful cloud of witnesses who've seen and persevered through much evil. And they are cheering you on now, today. So be encouraged. Throw off the weight and run to your end with perseverance. Amen.